Ambassador Chen sat at her desk in the diplomatic quarters of station Kepler 442, clicking her pen repeatedly out of habit. Click, click, click. The sound echoed in the quiet room until suddenly the pen's mechanism gave up entirely. The clicker broke off in her hand, leaving the refill exposed and useless. She sighed and tossed the broken pieces onto her desk. It was just a pen, but it had been her favorite. A simple blue ballpoint that she had carried through 3 treaty negotiations and 2 first contact scenarios. Now, it sat in pieces, another casualty of deep space life where replacement supplies took months to arrive. The door chimed. Chen looked up to see 3 young Vakari standing in her doorway. The Vakari were the galaxy's most feared apex predators. Towering beings covered in dark scales with rows of sharp teeth and claws that could tear through starship hull plating. These 3, however, were cubs, barely reaching Chen's shoulder height. Their scales still had the soft shimmer of youth, and their eyes held that curious sparkle that seemed universal among children across all species. Ambassador Chen? The smallest one, whose name Chen had learned was Crixor, spoke in halting standard. "We come for lesson today?" Chen had almost forgotten. She had volunteered to teach basic human culture to young Vakari as part of the station's cultural exchange program. Their regular instructor was ill, and Chen had offered to fill in. "Of course, come in," she said, gesturing to the cushions arranged on the floor. The Vakari did not use chairs the way humans did. The 3 cubs entered, their taloned feet clicking on the metal floor. They moved with the careful grace of predators, even at their young age. The other 2 were named Thesic and Morrow. They settled onto the cushions, their tails curling around their bodies in the Vakari posture of attentive learning. Chen began her lesson, talking about human art and music, showing them images on her datapad. The cubs watched with fascination, asking questions in their broken standard. Crixor wanted to know why humans painted images of things they could simply photograph. Thesic was confused about why humans enjoyed sounds with no practical communication purpose. Morrow stayed mostly quiet, watching everything with intense golden eyes. Halfway through the lesson, Chen reached for her pen to make a note, forgetting it was broken. Her hand touched the pieces, and she muttered a small curse under her breath. Morrow's head tilted. "Ambassador Chen sad?" No, Chen said quickly. "Just annoyed. My pen broke." 3 pairs of eyes fixed on the broken pen with laser focus. In Vakari culture, Chen had learned tools were sacred things. A broken tool was a matter of serious concern. "Broken?" Crixor leaned forward, his nostrils flaring. "What is pen?" Chen picked up the pieces. "It is a writing tool. See? The ink comes through this small point here, and you press it to paper to make marks. Humans use them to write things down." "Why not use data recorder?" Thesic asked, genuinely confused. "Sometimes we like to write by hand," Chen explained. "It helps us think. It is also tradition for some tasks." The cubs exchanged glances, and Chen saw something pass between them in their own subtle body language. She continued with the lesson, but noticed their attention kept drifting back to the broken pen on her desk. When the lesson ended and the cubs filed out, Chen thought nothing of their distracted behavior. Young beings of any species had short attention spans. The next morning, Chen arrived at her office to find something unexpected. On her desk, next to where she had left the broken pen, sat the pen again. But now it was wrapped completely in what appeared to be some kind of adhesive tape. The cubs had used a clear bonding strip used for temporary hull repairs, wrapping it around and around the pen's body where the clicker mechanism had broken off. The pen looked absurd. The tape was uneven, with bubbles and wrinkles throughout. Parts of it stuck to itself. The whole thing was bulky and awkward now, but when Chen carefully picked it up and tested it, she found the refill was held firmly in place. She could write with it. A small note sat beside the repaired pen, written in painstaking standard letters. "We fix tool. Tool important." Chen felt her throat tighten unexpectedly. She turned the pen over in her hands, looking at the messy repair job. The Cubs must have spent hours trying to figure out how to fix it. They had clearly asked someone for tape, probably describing the problem in their limited vocabulary. They had tried their best to restore functionality to what they saw as an important tool. That afternoon, Chen went to find the Cubs. She located them in the station's educational wing, in a common area where young beings of various species gathered. Crixor, Thesic, and Morrow were practicing standard language with a teaching program when Chen approached. The three Cubs looked up at her with what Chen had learned to recognize as nervousness in Vakari expressions. Their scales flattened slightly, and their tails went rigid. "Ambassador Chen," Crixor said softly. "We fix pen wrong?" Chen knelt down to their level, holding out the tape-covered pen. "You fixed it perfectly." Confusion rippled across their features. Thesic spoke up. "But tape is messy, not like original tool." "That does not matter," Chen said. "You saw that something was broken, and you tried to help. That is what matters. You used what you had available to solve a problem. That is very human, actually." "Very human?" Morrow asked, speaking up for the first time. "Is good." Chen smiled. "Yes. Humans are not always the strongest or the fastest. We do not have scales like you or claws or many of the natural abilities other species have, but we are very good at fixing things with whatever we have nearby. We call it improvisation. Making do. We have a saying, use duct tape. It is a type of tape we use to fix almost anything." The Cubs seemed to process this, their scaled brows furrowing in thought. Crixor's tail began to sway slowly, a sign of pleased understanding. "So, tape repair is human thing?" he asked. "Very human," Chen confirmed. "In fact, on old Earth spacecraft, tape was one of the most important tools. Astronauts used it to fix all sorts of problems. There is a famous story about the Apollo 13 mission where humans had to use tape and spare parts to save their crew's lives. She told them the story, how human ingenuity and improvisation had saved the astronauts when everything went wrong. The Cubs listened with rapt attention, their earlier nervousness fading into fascination. When she finished, Thesic said, "So broken things can work again, even not perfect?" "Especially not perfect," Chen said. "Perfect is not always possible. Good enough is often better." Over the following weeks, something shifted in the station's educational wing. The young Vakari began approaching problems differently. When a display screen malfunctioned, instead of calling maintenance immediately, they tried to figure out temporary solutions. When a teaching program glitched, they found workarounds. They started asking questions not just about how things were supposed to work, but how they could be made to work with available resources. The adult Vakari noticed the change. Commander Throkesh, the station's head of Vakari operations, came to Chen's office one day. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his massive form filling her doorway. "I must ask what you are teaching the Cubs." Chen felt a moment of worry. Had she overstepped some cultural boundary? "I am teaching them about human culture, as assigned." Thrakesh's expression was hard to read. Then his scales rippled in what Chen had learned was amusement. "You are teaching them to think like humans, to see problems as opportunities for creative solutions rather than simply following established procedures." "Is that bad?" Chen asked carefully. "No," Throkesh said, and his tone was thoughtful. "It is different. Vakari culture values strength and precision. We follow proven methods. We do not improvise. But perhaps we should. The Cubs are learning flexibility. In a galaxy full of unexpected situations, this may be valuable." He placed a small container on her desk. Inside were 3 pens, proper ones from the human supplies that had just arrived on the cargo transport. From the Cubs, Throkesh explained. They saved their recreational credits to purchase these. They said you need backup tools in case your repaired one breaks again. Chen opened the container and found the 3 pens along with another note. Human ambassador need tools. We learn from broken pen. Always have backup plan. Very human thing. That evening, Chen sat at her desk with her original pen, still wrapped in its messy tape repair, and the 3 new pens beside it. She would use the new pens for official documents, but she would keep the taped one. She thought about the Cubs who had seen a broken tool and instinctively wanted to help, who had tried to fix it with what they had available, who had learned that sometimes good enough was better than perfect. She thought about how a simple act of kindness had sparked something new in young Predator minds. Perhaps that was the real story of humanity in the galaxy. Not that humans were the strongest or the smartest, but that they knew how to make do, how to fix things with tape and hope and stubborn determination. And maybe, just maybe, that was something worth teaching. Chen picked up her taped pen and began writing her report. The pen worked just fine, bubbles and wrinkles and all.